Good afternoon and welcome to the Daily Ramble here on Claret and Booze. My name's Gary and I've got an interesting ramble for you today. First, I'm going to cover two things, just two topics. One of them's very big. All right, but the first one is going to be about my experience. I went to see some of the stars of West Ham's future last night over at Wycombe. Bloody good night it was, really good. And then I'm going to cover episode 1 of the Moyes myth. And this is, an exercise in deconstructing some of the myths that surround David Moyes. And firstly, I'm going to, with the first episode, I'm going to talk about the fans. But I was really looking forward to this because a lot has been said about the youth team and their achievements, the under-23s, and I wanted to see it. I wanted to see these boys for myself. Right from the off, I think in the first half and the second half, Wycombe were on top. I mean, they really tried to put this game to bed in the first half, and then they tried to do it again in the second half. The second half of the first half, and this happened in both halves, West Ham just took control. It was in the second half, which I really enjoyed because I could see the attack right up close. Really enjoyed George Earthy. I thought he had a touch of the Monkers about him. So we were 2-0 down again in the second half. We started pushing. We sort of weathered the storm. I think they hit the post. I think 58th minute. It was an assist by Chester's, I think, and Kadua, who really impressed me until he sort of ran out of steam at the end. I thought he was a real. He's got really good close control, quick, and he made a chance for himself earlier where somehow he found a gap to get around a defender that was right in front of him and get a shot on goal. The angle was too narrow, but this time he got his chance. The keeper was there again, but he belted it, and it basically went through the keeper. Right, through the keeper into the top of the net. West Ham eruptions over there, which was brilliant. And then it's 2-1 going into the last little section of the game. It was like the Alamo for the last 5 minutes. We're literally peppering their box. And with the very last kick of the game, they cleared the ball off the line, right? Wycombe. So we only just missed out on a penalty shootout against this team who were obviously set up in that way because they were playing against under-23s. I mean, the difference is, a lot of these players who they're playing against for Wycombe, they're at their peak. That's as far as they're going to go. The 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3, it's a great system. It's wonderful. Lots of triangles everywhere. Very neat and tidy. Like I said, central midfield. I think we lost the ball, conceded possession a few times, but at the same time, I just love their ambition. I love the way there seems to be a bit of there's self-belief. There's a certain arrogance about some of these players, and I think to be a top player, you've got to have that level of arrogance and self-belief. You really have. My picks for last night, again, I saw them up close, so I might be being a bit biased here. My eyes are terrible, but Casey, I really liked. Kadua, I really liked. Earthy, really liked. Skulls as well. And picking a few of the others, Alford had a great game. I think Anang, his footwork's really good. He's really good on the floor. He made a couple of good saves as well, but he's really comfortable with the ball at his feet, even when under pressure. And yeah, lastly, Marshall, obviously, who we've heard news this week about him maybe making his way into the first team. But look, it was just a fantastic night out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I have done watching the first team recently. I felt like I had more invested into it. You know what I mean? The Moyes myth, episode 1, the fans. So, this is really built upon. I've been doing a lot of research recently into David Moyes' history, and it's not for any troublemaking reason. It is just to really see if, I told you my eyesight's bad, am I actually seeing what I think I'm seeing? And are the narratives that we relay on this channel, are they accurate? Do they tie up with reality? Yeah. And I think the evidence I've found so far is they absolutely do. We're not making this stuff up, right? It's there before your very eyes. If you want to deny it, that's your choice. If you want to support the manager until the bitter end, that is your choice. But I think it's only responsible to share some of these bits and pieces that we've found out. And, that's what I'm going to do. That is what I'm going to do. So there is an interview. If you go back 10 years, setting the scene. If you go back 10 years, and again, here's where I need to do a couple of things. Put the laptop screen up, and I need to put my own little self in the corner. Right, okay, so this is an interview that was halfway through David Moyes' first and only season at Man United. It started terribly, and the Man United fans, they were starting to turn on him. You don't get much time at Man U, to be fair, right? There's a Man U website or blog called the Republic of Mancunia. And they interviewed 3 Everton fans called Dan, Alex, and they're obviously initials OI. And so I've categorised them, I've colour-coded them so as you can make it out, right? So this is almost exactly 10 years ago to the day, by the way. Dan is in red because he's firmly Moyes out. And this is just so you can identify it as we're going through, because it's basically a load of interview questions and responses, yeah? The guy in the middle is kind of Moyes meh. That's Alex. In yellow, and then you've got OI in green because he's generally a Moyes supporter, right? Even though some of the responses here might surprise you from a Moyes supporter. Now, their ages at the time when they did this, these guys, they were 33, 28 and 31, so relative youngsters compared to me. So 10 years ago, that was 11 years after he started at Everton. So what you're talking about here is really the last 21 years, because when I take you through this, you're going to realise that not much has changed, and it's disturbing. Let me tell you, it even disturbed Nick and Mickey and John when I showed it the other day. So let's go through, and what I want you to do here is I want you to ask yourself this single question: has he not changed at all in 21 years? And for ease of listening, I want you to imagine that Fellaini is Thomas Souček and Bill Kenwright is David Sullivan. All right? So let's kick it off. Question 1, in a couple of sentences, try and sum up your general impression of David Moyes' tenure at Everton. Dan, okay, so I believe Moyes was very clever at Everton in that he had the majority fooled that he was doing a good job. But Everton have always been a big club. We had a 10-year bad spell, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to read it word for word, but you get the gist. Alex, he was always a cautious man. And sometimes I felt it was he was setting the team out not to lose as opposed to win. He did an excellent job, but failed to take Everton that step further by not getting a trophy or finishing in the top 4 on more than one occasion. And when you talk top 4 back then, you're talking about it was a much weaker league back then, right? I think they were really Man United and Arsenal. It was between them every year. And then the sort of Moyes inner DM made Everton credible again. He rebuilt us into a team. The support. So if you remember, they went through a load of Howard Kendall's second spell, Mike Walker, blah 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 blah. Howard Kendall's third spell, and then he brought some players in like Osman Pinar, Arteta, and he had a British core: Rooney, Lescott, Jagielka. Arguably nothing to show for it, he closes, but then the same is true for Arsenal for the past 8 years. All right, so fair enough. So let's move on to question 2. There are vastly differing opinions on whether Moyes has overachieved, underachieved, or performed steadily during his reign at Everton. Please explain your reasons for your opinion. So Dan said he underachieved. He won no trophies and had 4 or 5 games that were massive, in which we lost due to bad tactics. An FA Cup final, a semi-final, a Champions League qualifier, and a Europa Cup spring to mind. Alex said a mixture of all 3. We overachieved in 2005 by qualifying for the Champions League, but then never got into the group stages. They actually got eliminated in the qualifiers, and were also knocked out of the Europa Cup. So not only were they knocked out, did they not qualify for Champions League, they went on to get knocked out of the Europa Cup. He underachieved by not delivering a trophy in 11 years. You've got to remember who Everton are, and in their history, like from when he joined, it was within recent memory that they'd won the FA Cup. Right, I think he joined in 2002. They'd won it in 95, I think. So it was only 7 years earlier. And then the third one, the Moyes inner, says steady overachievement without ever the tangible success. Stability in the top 6-7 is not an achievement per se. Okay, so there's a grouped question here. So it says from Moyes' time at Everton, how do you assess his capability in the following categories? So category A is style of play. Dan says style of play was poor. Would play a high tempo, which works sometimes against good sides at home, but failed away. We never won an away game against a Big Four in 11 seasons or over 40 plus games. Alex said the style of passing play improved at Everton over the years, but thanks to the quality of player improving, like Pienaar and Arteta, the style was always to have a strong defensive unit, which he built at Everton and will at United given time. So he wasn't allowed to do that. We were always fit and worked hard as a team. Yeah. And then the third one, he evolved from nondescript when he arrived to passing. Though I always felt frustrated at the use of only one striker. Fellaini and Cahill are limited players. Souček, okay, are limited players and harked back to the Duncan Ferguson long ball style. His choice of attackers was generally not great. Name one great striker he bought. Out BT, Johnson, Yakubu, all record signings, but none really did the job. So I think this is maybe starting to sound a little bit familiar to you already, I would think. So the mentality, what was his mentality like? And Dan just said, well, see what I just said about the style of play. Alex said he's a cautious manager, and then OI, who seems to be turning the other way at the moment. He says, in quotes, doing the best we can given the constraints. So that's obviously one of the excuses that was ramped out, and we've heard that, right? You remember that the Villa game a few weeks ago. So adaptability during matches, and with some of these answers, not all three people answer for some reason, don't know why. Dan said his biggest flaw is adaptability during matches. He is unable to change a game. He's lacking tactical ability. He has no plan B. He will often watch a game and wait for it to go wrong before trying to do something about it. For example, we would be 0-0 at home and getting battered. He would wait until we go 1-0 down before changing things. Does that here, right? A good manager will foresee the problem and act beforehand. You reckon? Alex, terrible. With substitutes, we were too predictable and too reactive, and we would have to wait until we'd gone behind to go more attacking. Well, absolutely. We see that every game we go behind, right? Okay, man management. What was his man management like? Dan said he does not handle players well. He has bad methods. Players don't agree, and he bumps them off very, very quickly. He's stubborn, aggressive, and not a popular man. Alex says mixed. He clearly has his favourites, and he felt that he could rely on Hibbert, Jagielka, Osman, Cahill, and they're ordinary players, right? But seemed unwilling to give youth a chance. Where have we heard that before? The emergence of Ross Barkley this year has been astonishing, but begs the question, why did Moyes not start him in his final year and he was instead loaned out twice? One of the biggest disappointments from an Everton perspective was the treatment of Wayne Rooney. I was not surprised by his actions at the end of last season, when he heard Moyes was taking over at Man U and he wanted to get out of Old Trafford. The man management of strikers over the years has been awful. Again, repeating theme, yeah? The strategy was to run them into the ground, Antonio, working hard so they would never get in the right position when we had the ball. He's also had this strange desire to play strikers on the right. Andy Johnson, Victor Anichebe are two of the examples. And the Moyes in guy says, very good, with the exception of Rooney perhaps. Ross Barkley was almost as high profile as Wayne Rooney. And we know the story with Wayne Rooney. He kept scoring. He had to leave in the team. Think Kudus. Okay, what was his scouting and signing of players like? And Dan said very 50-50. He would often take players on loan to see if they were fit before signing them permanently. Case in point being Arteta. He won't be able to do this at United. He did uncover some gems at our level, i.e. Cahill, e.g. Cahill, but he's unable to bring in top players, which is what is needed at United. Alex said, excellent overall. The list is endless for the amount of players that were brought in with next to no money to spend. Cahill, Coleman, Baines, Jagielka, blah, blah. However, he made some poor decisions, as all managers do, on Andy van der Meade, Per fucking hell, give up on these. I don't think that we ever had a true goal scorer. Where have we had this before? Despite spending big money on James Beattie, Andy Johnson, Yakubu, etc. And it is an etc. There were plenty of them. Just another trick that is repeated here. I think this proves he has done well on a budget, but struggled when it comes to spending big money, which is exactly what we said and exactly why Stein is here. He's useless at spending big money. And then OI at the bottom says, great at finding bargains. So he kind of agrees. Neville, Howard, Cahill, Lescott. Yeah, all bargains, all good players, right? But fit into his system. Not good when given a bit of cash. So even the Moyes in person agrees with that. Selection of backroom staff. So this is part F of this question. So it was mixed. It did seem that he surrounded himself with yes men. I wasn't surprised when most of the staff decided to leave to go to Old Trafford because they're very loyal to him. Alan Irvine was a great assistant manager. I was always impressed with him. Steve Round didn't really warm to Everton fans during his time. The scouting system was excellent. And then OI said good. Again, I think he has been quite good with the backroom staff here when you remember Pearce and various other people that he's had in. And then we got to the point, I think, where he had no backroom staff, right? And then the final part of this is, how did he cultivate a rapport with the fans, stroke media, stroke chairman? And Dan, this is an interesting answer. He said he plays to that. He tries to get the fans onside to cover up his inadequacies, but people can see through it. Take last night, for example. Sunderland beat United 2-1. And all Moyes could talk about was how the fans sang his name and are onside. But what about all the fans phoning up on Twitter? So it's propaganda. Alex said, impressive overall. The relationship with the fans has always been strong, and he was clearly best mates with Bill Kenwright. This is where I ask you to imagine David Sullivan. Overall, he came across well with the media, and he was always honest. And then the Moyes guy says, outstanding. Scottish connection aside, were you able to discuss? I think this is quite, this is quite an interesting question. Scottish connection aside, were you surprised that he was picked to go to United? Dan said, I laughed. As you know, when Moyes went to United, because I've been slugging him off for 6 years. At Everton, the vocal fans are quite young and were brought up during the 10-year bad spell in which we still won an FA Cup in 95. So they just associated Everton with that, as in Everton was still successful. But the older fans know how big the club is and how important it is. So it was 50-50 split on Moyes, but the vocal fans were on his side. That's what we're seeing here. We're seeing exactly that here, right? This is eerie. We're seeing the younger fans completely obsessed with Moyes, and we're seeing a lot of the older fans just not, because they see West Ham a little bit more long term. I think that explains it. We see a bigger picture over a longer period of time rather than something that's happened in the last couple of years. That's refresh me, yeah. Right. Personally, I knew as soon as Moyes went to United, it would be a disaster for United. And he said, didn't I text you the day of the appointment and concede the title on your behalf? Good old Scouse humour right there. So Alex, yes, because he never won anything at Goodison. Length of service and stability is an important factor when picking a manager. This is what made United so successful under Ferguson and the main reason Moyes was selected. That didn't turn out to be a factor, right? Not that surprised, but given a little lack of trophies and top level experience with top players, I was glad to see United stay British and totally understand the choice, though that may mean less short-term success than Mourinho might have got. That was untrue as well, right? So next question. I think we're about 2/3 of the way through here, so bear with me. There's still some more interesting stuff to come. I hope you're seeing so far. This is a bit weird, right? This is eerie in its similarity to his current situation at West Ham and what us who've been complaining about him over the last several years, what we've complained about, right? Because, old Moyesy, as he doesn't have another way of doing things.
Moyesy, I don't think we're that close. Moyesy, I don't think we're that close.
Yeah. So, do you believe he did the right thing by bringing in most of his backroom staff with him from Everton? Sounds like similar questions to before, doesn't it? But loyalty to his staff, but not to his players, seems strange. That doesn't surprise me, but he should have kept some of the United people around, and that's something I've been banging on about. He dismantled Alex Ferguson's organisation, won all those trophies. Who knew the club? Absolutely. I don't think you can blame the backroom staff for the current situation. They just follow Moyes' orders. Absolutely they do. Otherwise they're shown the door. But they're hardly qualified. Exactly. Alex, I think he should have blended the two to make it an easier transition. I felt if he had some excellent coaches at United gone on a separate matter, he should have selected either Giggs or Neville as a coach, but not both. Both are trying to learn their craft, and there's too much pressure on them early in their coaching careers. And then the Moyes guy says not really. So not really as in did he do the right thing by bringing most of him backroom staff in. Right, next one. Do you read much into the rumours that United players have found his training methods a bit outdated? Dan says, I 100% know this, and I 100% believe it to be true. Moyes has always focused on fitness rather than ball work. A lot of people at Everton had issues with his training, hence poor start to the season every year. This is very hard to tell from an outsider looking in, says Alex. I know Moyes makes the players work hard to be as fit as possible, and OI says, I'm a bit surprised. How do you evaluate his first half season in charge of Old Trafford, both on and off the pitch, as expected? This is all a bit Man U, this bit, isn't it? I'm not even interested in this. Is Moyes doing it his way at Old Trafford, right? Or is he trying to adhere to Man U philosophy and failing? And then Dan just confirms, yeah, he's absolutely doing it his own way, which is clearly not good enough. He's stubborn. And then the guy in green says neither. I think he's clearly wrong, judging by this. He's signing a Fellaini. Was it rushed? Was it a stopgap? Surprising to you? Will Mariam Fellaini eventually prove a valuable asset to Man U? Dan says he's an overrated slogger. I want you to picture Thomas Souček. Not good enough for United. Barely good enough for Everton. Panic buy. Alex said, I think the key for me is the fact that he had a cheaper buyout clause in his contract that expired weeks before you bought him. So they wasted money. Therefore, it looked rushed and it was a plan. It was plan B. Fellaini was a good player in big games for Everton, but was too inconsistent against the teams lower down the league. Overall, he was playing poor for Everton for year over year to the point where we sold him, and his form has continued for United. Initially, when Fellaini joined Everton, he looked lost, labelled an average, similar to his performances at present. His best performances came when he was playing behind the striker, Thomas Souček, number 10. Interestingly, a position he doesn't like. It's unlikely you'll play him in this position, so I fear it would be a disappointment. And then the third one says, horrible signing, first up for DM. No, he's awful. They all universally agree that he was awful, Fellaini, right? Yet Fellaini was the first name on the team sheet for Everton every bloody week while he was there, and went on to do the same at Man United. This was not a good player. We're seeing the same with Souček, right? Nearly there now. I think there's a couple of questions left. That's it. Okay, moving forward, how do you think Moyes can improve the current lack of form, straight consistency? Dan says a leopard doesn't change his spots. He's tactically inept. That can't change. Alex, initially some good fortune. Something small can change, but the whole team's outlook, I don't really care whether Man United... A settled side will help. That is 8 or 9 players playing most weeks at present. I don't think he knows his best side. Yeah, he hasn't prized them all into the 4-2-3-1 yet. He needs to inspire both fans and players. And then OI says he needs RVP and Wazza back. Well, that didn't help him either. Do you attribute any blame to Moyes for shambolic summer transfer window when he arrived? Do you believe he wants to sign in the January transfer window? As in sign anyone in the transfer window? Do you believe he'll be given the funds? That bit's irrelevant. So Dan, he can't blame the board. He was known as Dithering Davy at Everton, often wanting 50 reports on a player before he bought them. Alex said he has to take some blame because they were his targets, but it's clear that 2 new faces at the top of a football club in the same year was probably not a wise move. He needed the funds to rebuild the squad. From what I've heard, he will get back in. Well, he didn't. And OI says it was poor of the club to change CEO at the same time. Yeah, they did do that, to be fair, but I don't think that had any impact on it, to be honest. So I think OI's grasping at straws there. But it says David Moyes a big boy now. Do you think he deserves time to prove himself? Nah, irrelevant. From what you've seen, Red Herd, how do you perceive and assess Man United fans' reactions? So to put this into context, Man United were 50-50 at the time. They were 50% Moyes in, 50% Moyes out. As Dan said, the Everton fans were as well. as we are at the moment, probably, right? Even though I believe it's a lot more than 50% out. Dan says, fans at the game sing his name, but Twitter radio phone-ins have a lot of anger towards him. Alex said, completely mixed. Some are willing to do the right thing and give him time. Others are calling for his head before he's had long enough to prove himself. And OI says, not sure really. Some are clueless and too used to success. Football is cyclical, and Man United are competing with big spenders. So Alex Ferguson's new, saying blah, 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 blah. Yeah. That's been probably quite prophetic, actually, from it's probably his best answer. Right? Man United have never been the same since. Right? Where are we? Finally, the last question, everybody. I know this has been a long one, but I hope you found it interesting. Finally, is there anything you've ever read, seen on Moyes, literally anything, video, picture, article, which you believe provides a good insight into the man and his ability? So Dan and OI didn't respond to this, but Alex did. He said at the moment he looks scared and hugely under pressure, hence why he's spending a significant period of time concentrating on refereeing decisions. There was actually in the Manchester Evening News actually set up a website called the David Moyes Excuse Generator. I kid you not, right? He needs to concentrate on what is within his control, putting in a performance on the pitch. I've listened to him talk a few times, and there's no doubting that he's hard-working and he's thorough in his work. No one doubts that. Some of the stories I've heard from the training ground, it's very much his way or the highway. And that right, Skamaka, Haller, Kera, and everybody else. So now you've seen that, and I've walked you through it, and I know this has been a very, very, very long ramble, so apologies for that. I hope you've stayed with it till the end. Some of the questions in there were a bit too Everton Man U specific, I get that, but, you know, ask yourself this question. So that's the one I said at the beginning. Has he not actually changed at all in 21 years? Because I don't think he has, but I've got one more, more important question than that. What makes you think he's going to change now? So I'll leave you with that thought. Let's just do what I was supposed to do here. Take the laptop screen out. Right. Yeah. So there we have it. That concludes the episode 1 of the Moyes myth about the fans. I think that's probably a very exhausting and exhaustive interview that shows in detail a lot of commonality between what we're seeing and what we've been complaining about. It existed at Everton up to 21 years ago, and then it existed at Man U. When you go and look at it, you look at some of the Man U comments, the ones that didn't like him, they complained about the same stuff. The same stuff. It's amazing. It really is. But anyway, let's go back onto a cheerier subject. And look, I just want to finish by saying, reiterating those boys last night, some stars of the future there. They're going to come through. I hope they don't come through under David Moyes, because I think if he had been there last night, which he wasn't, I think he would have been more watching the Wycombe team who played the 4-2-3-1 and were just big lumps hoofing the ball up the pitch with 30% possession, right? Sullivan was there, by the way. He was there because his roller followed me about 30 miles home. I think he hired a hitman or something. Maybe he thought I was Nick. Now, interesting that Sullivan was there. I don't know if Stighton was there or not, but everybody should be there. These are the kids that are the future. He's nearly got no players left. Moyes should be running the rule over these kids, not asking for reports on them. He should be going to see them. He should be showing an interest in them if he's got any intention of using them, which I personally don't think he has, sadly. And so that's why, we are #Moyes out on this channel. And we're not called the Academy of Football for nothing. That has come over many, many years of bringing through players from youth team to first team. That is what West Ham is all about. That's what we're built upon, right? So I think, let's just have a quick look here a minute. No, I think that's it. I think we are done. So look, if you enjoyed this show, this very, very long show, please subscribe to our channel, Claret & Booze. Hit the bell notification icon and hit a like, give the video a like. It helps us with the algorithm quite a lot. This is the start. This is the first episode. They're not all going to be text-based interviews, right? I promise you. But this is the first episode that we're, me personally, I'm going to be going through the different aspects. I think a while ago I said I had a list of about 13 or 14 different items that really annoy me, right? I think a lot of them were just covered there, but I've got a number of others as well. And I'm going to make videos about them because these are the things where people hit us all the time, right? Where they slag us off and say we're getting it wrong. Well, as you can see from that interview, we ain't getting it wrong. This shit is happening. It's you that's in denial. In fact, the people who are willing to accept this mediocre football but love a temporary upturn in results, and that's all it is, what they're doing is they're settling for second best, because this guy is not best, right? This guy is not best, and I don't know, whoever we get next, they might be, hopefully will come in and be a storming success and play football the right way and bring the youth team through and everything else. But one thing's for sure, even if he left in the summer, he wouldn't be leaving this club better than he found it, right? Because, as you saw in Nick's video yesterday, in the summer, we could end up with 10 first-team players. Well, he wanted to fucking add Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay to that. He wanted to spend every penny we've got on those two stiffs. Right? So, tell me that wasn't a plan for him to make to kind of get himself to play himself into a position where he was the only option, because I absolutely firmly believe that. That is me done. So until next time, see you soon. Look after yourself. Wrap up warm. Hashtag Moyes out. Come on, you irons.